The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships, or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
We have been on a hiatus for about 2 weeks from you being on the podcast. I feel like the event, we almost forgot about it, but not quite. So
Never.
I just want to thank you for being on the show, but let's get right into it. What was your biggest takeaway from the event?
Oh my gosh. I still have a hard time coming up with even words. It was such an incredible, emotional, spiritual experience. I mean, for me, the biggest takeaway, obviously it was my first event, and, really coaching, in a environment like that. And my biggest takeaway really was how we worked together and what we created, and the space that was so beautifully designed for each couple to show up and fight for what they wanted and tear down walls and share pain that had been, maybe some of them had pain for a year, maybe some of them 20 years, and to watch them speak about it and release it and let it go and walk them, through that, listening, and then come out on the other side, connecting, not always physically, but just looking at each other. And the tears I shed, the goosebumps I had, truly just the overall experience of the resurrection, truly, of marriages. Yeah,
that's a lot of one things, but I kind of put you on the spot on that. So
Yeah.
That was 20 things in one thing.
Okay, 20. Yeah.
But I did put you on the spot. So, it was our first event. And I think what was really cool about being our first event was we didn't really know what to expect. In fact, I can remember sitting in the beginning thinking how the hell is this going to go? And then it went beautiful. And I would say the biggest thing that I learned that is when you're in flow, or when you find a flow in life, whether it's, with your spouse or just wherever, there's very little resistance that comes up. And what I noticed throughout the entire event is I just felt this flow back and forth with you throughout the whole event. And I never felt like anything was forced. I never felt like there was any resistance in any part of it. And I can't say I've felt that in any other event.
Right. And you've done these. And so, when I was okay, what is there to expect? And even days leading up to it, everyone's are you excited? I'm I'm excited, but I'm scared. I kind of want the first one to be over so I know. And just being in it, there was no resistance. And I remember my first post when I could literally think again was, literally I was in a meditation, and I thought of a river, and you just flow with where things are going. And, we're just there to guide and to love and to create the space.
Yeah. And, the other thing is I think, as a guide, you're there to lead and open up space for other people to find their own flow and find their own space inside of that. And I think, that's what was very apparent at the event was hey, there was a lot of pain, trauma, and things that came up. But at the same time, as it would surface and as it would come up, there was this, energetic space throughout all the couples and even us that just allowed people to work through that on their own. And it was never really forced or never felt like, man, this doesn't feel right. And so I love how, when I've been through events where things felt forced, I've been through events where they have felt in flow. But one thing that I really love about this was, it was just us doing it and facilitating it. Obviously, we had other people helping us, but for the most part, it was just me and you, the entire event, and 5 couples. And that was a small, intimate place for all of us to be. And it was really cool because it felt like we got to be very intimate with each couple.
Right. Well, and it was you and I, and like literally soul, like our, like so passionate about, so it didn't really have to be forced because it is who we are.
Right.
And we just were, sharing our journey and what we've walked through and opening up, space for couples then to share what it just, it was so intimate. And truly, I mean, just, I can only speak from what I saw, but like, as you led, then I could come in. And I mean, I was truly just blown away by the whole experience.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in, almost 30 events, whether it was leading, coaching, assisting, whatever. And so, that was your first event, and I would have been pretty nervous. I remember like my first few events, I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do? And I kept running through my head, but
so naturally where you showed up in space, and then there was like this space that was just naturally created for me to show up.
Right.
And we just kind of bounced back, and it was incredible. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
We were speechless for, I think almost 2 weeks. I mean, even to the point, like, this is literally our first podcast together, and it's been almost 2 weeks. And I shot one last week just so I didn't forget about a lot of the things that I had learned from the couples. And so just being on here today to talk about it again, it kind of brings everything back. But I just want you to know how proud of you I am for how you did show up, because, I know even the first like 10 events, I was still second guessing how I was showing up in those events. So just to be able to do that on your first one and just show up in a powerful way. And I think it just goes to show when you're in the place that you're supposed to be in, like, it just, whatever has to come out, whatever has to happen comes out.
Right. No, it was so natural. I mean, it really was. And in times of, one of the most powerful, experience we did. And, when we were literally like soul to soul with these couples, and we had them one-on-one, and, you were kind of the one leading the exercise as they're sharing. And like, I mean, literally just tears, I can't, I mean, I go to speechless because it was so incredible.
Yeah. And one of the coolest nights, I think, for us was to walk down to the beach one night on the pier and have these marriage boot camp shirts on. And just, I mean, it was like we were walking down as like celebrities, and it was like paparazzi like all over us looking at us. But, one person actually did say, hey, if their marriage is that bad and they need marriage boot camp, their marriage is probably over. And I remember at the time feeling like, man, if they only knew what was really happening here. And it kind of pissed me off at first, but at the same time, I'm like, well, I wonder how bad that their marriage is, that they're reflecting this back on us. And I actually began to feel, I don't want to say sorry, but I began to feel like, okay, this is what we're up against in the world. And also not only that, but like, if you're not doing something big enough to where you have people criticizing you, then I don't really feel like it's a big enough mission.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, to be honest, like, that just fuels me. That makes me smile. And on the other side of that for me was the women coming up to me, hey, what is this? Can I have your number? How do I hear more about this? Oh my gosh, like, how do we get in? So that, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's always going to be there. I mean, whether it be friends, family, people on a pier, of course they're going to they're going to have those reactions because, they're uncomfortable themselves.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Like even just wearing the shirts, we've been wearing them more and more, and the people that come up, I mean, I love it. Everyone, wow, there's nothing like this,
Right. And I one of the cool things is, as we did that, people started coming up asking him like, hey, what is this? But one of the biggest things that I find in everybody that I interview, because I usually interview everyone before we actually accept them into the program, is they have a hard time talking to their spouse and getting them into doing this. Like, what would you say to someone who, it's a husband or wife and they want to take their marriage to the next level, but they don't really know how to talk to their spouse about it?
Well, I was thinking, this is funny, this comes up and I haven't even mentioned this to you, but we talked a little bit about investing in your marriage, you and I, and just how it's so easy to invest in other things. But I was thinking about as a female and, the bride and the wedding day, and how do you go to your parents and you spend all this money on the day you're getting married and on the food and the invites and the party. And it's literally just the day you're saying I do. But then, 5 years in, 10 years in, you can't, or you find it hard to go to your spouse and say, hey, I want to invest in us in something like this, just to take it. Honestly, it blows me away, because I think, why are we, or how are we investing all this money? And we were watching a wedding going on our anniversary, at a very expensive resort. And I think this bride and groom, wow, how incredible, on the pictures, on the video. And yes, it's an incredible investment. And I'm not saying don't do that, because we did that. But then what? Then what are you investing in? Because the first year happens, the second year happens. And, how are you working on your marriage from there? And yes, in comes finances, in comes a house, in comes kids. And so it's almost like, to me, why wouldn't you invest in what you've already invested in, but now you've come farther, and obviously things have come up. So to continue to create more and build more, and get more tools and work together and communicate and walk through these things that you've been through, why is it even a question on investing more when you've known the person for how long? You're signing, a commitment to be married, and it's easy to drop $20, $30, $40, $50,000, but we have this hard time going to our spouse. So I don't know. For me, I look at it as an investment in your life, like in your marriage. Like if you want to continue to
be married. Right. And the other thing for me, and it's huge on my heart, is we learned from our parents. Right.
And so we only know what we saw, which is totally fine. But at the same time, do we want to recreate what we saw in our children? And they don't have a choice. We do. So it's even bigger than just you and I and working on our marriage. It's what do I want my kids to see for their kids and the future? Like, we're creating the next generation of marriages, and we have a choice. And
right.
To me, that's priceless. And it's not necessarily, so what you don't communicate great? So what maybe sex has died down a little bit? So what there's, I don't know. I guess for me, I've always, if I want it and I want to fight for it, like I'm going to continue to invest in it.
Right. And maybe the biggest thing that we did learn from our parents is that you stay committed to being married.
Yes.
Because both of our parents have been married for over 40 years. And, probably the biggest thing that they have taught us is like just to be committed to each other. And that's the start. But I want to go back to what you said about, hey, on your wedding day, you're spending 10, 20, 30. People are spending $250,000 to $500,000 to millions of dollars on that wedding day. That's a cost. That is not necessarily an investment.
True.
Because an investment is where you get back 10 times, 20 times the growth back from it. And I want to make a statement on this is the day that you get married, although it's expensive, there's a huge cost involved in this, but it doesn't guarantee an investment in long term. What does guarantee an investment long-term is when you begin to invest into each other's relationships, into each other's communication, into each other sexually, and you begin to deal with real problems in your marriage, and you begin to grow from those. And I that's where I see the investment. And I heard one of our guys, one of our couples actually at Marriage Boot Camp, he said this. He said, look, we have that spark back and that look in each other's eyes that we had, when we first got married, when we first started dating, and it happened in 2 days. It didn't happen, like you said, at times your marriage, your sex, all these things get stale. But when do you decide to actually change that? And that's the real question, is like, how long are you going to wait until you decide to make a choice and change that behavior in your relationship? Because there's nothing that I know of that deals with those problems that intensely at that level like we do.
Well, 100%. And, I start thinking about fitness, and, we owned our gyms. And if we would have still had machines, the same machines today that we have 10 years ago, we wouldn't be getting anywhere. As a doctor, yes, you go through your school, you get your degree, but you have to continually get certified every single year, if not month. So where is that in marriage? Where are you continually, growing and expanding and learning, in marriage to continue your growth and keep you connected, and married? No one's going to go to a doctor, or a doctor's not going to be on fire or have the clients that they do, or have the results if they don't continually invest in their practice and who they are as a doctor. What's different about marriage? Honestly, right. To me... What
do you mean what's different? Marriage is like this much more important, and yet we look at it as like one of the least important things.
That's what I'm saying. Right. So why wouldn't you... Yeah, why aren't there certifications in marriage, and you know what I mean? And stuff like that.
And I look at, like, when you say body, I think about people, they go to the gym every single day. But what are you doing in your marriage every single day? Yeah. I look at doctors. Couples go to their doctor, or like individually, you go to your doctor every year. But when are you looking at all these areas in your marriage?
Well, and if you're sick, holy shit, like you take something, or you go somewhere to prevent yourself from getting sicker.
Yeah.
So once you start having issues, or, something starts coming up, the walls just build.
And, people go to church every single week, and they put on this happy face at church and pretend that everything's great. But inside, they're completely disconnected. They hate each other. They almost sleep in separate rooms. They're like roommates. Right. And, as much as I love church, no one at church will really call you out in that aspect of, hey, what's going on inside of your guys' marriage? Even I heard a story from a guy that I interviewed a few weeks ago, and it was like, look, I went to talk to my pastor, and he said, I'll just pray for you. That was like his answer for me. And I said, man, like, I don't know, if that's all pastors, but that's got to be hard to, look up to somebody for an answer, and all they give you is, hey, I'm going to pray for you, which, is great, but praying isn't the only thing that you can do.
That's right.
And, at times we have to take action if we're married. And, one of the times is this. I may have to confront my wife and say, listen, like, shit is not working the way it's going. We have to go work on a relationship. Or it may be vice versa. Hey, you're not showing up anymore. You're not being the man of the house. So I need you to be the man. But guess what? We're going to be going through a boot camp that's going to teach you how to be the man of the house. Because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of carrying the weight of the kids and our relationship and everything else on my shoulders. And so we're going to go together as a team and do this.
Well, and I think the other side of that is going together. Like, it's easy for me to say, look, like, I'm struggling, I'm not showing up, I'm going to put myself in something. But a lot of times it's harder to do it, together for both of you. But I'll tell you this, each and every one of our couples were so blown away by just not feeling alone. Like on the first day, one of the husbands was just, he was not here. Like he was here, but he wasn't here. And literally, a couple of the other husbands called him out and were like, look, man, we're here. We're here for our marriage. We're here for our wife. And we know you're not. And at the end of the event, he was like, that was the most powerful thing that those men could have done. And then for them to share what they had walked through, it was almost like gave me this okay and this like, I don't have to hide this anymore or stuff this I can let this out. I can let this go. And you're not alone. I think a lot of times, and even the wives would say, wow, I had no idea that other couples walked through the exact same things we were walking through, but being able to share it and free it and let it go was huge.
Yeah. And I would say, for anybody listening, if you're a couple and you're struggling and you're not sure how to bring this up or that other couples are struggling, like feel free to reach out to us. We're going to be profiling all 5 of our couples and just talking about them and their stories, because their stories will connect to your stories and how your relationship is. But do you have any final words on this?
I just honestly, like for me, so much love for that first 5, like to be on. It was absolutely incredible. The connections, what was created in their marriages. And to everyone listening who may think, we're a little disconnected here or there, like give your marriage this 2-day live event. Like maybe it's just to get the fire burning brighter or light the flame a little bit. You never know what coming to an event like this can do for your marriage. And if it's good, holy shit, go to great.
Yeah.
If it's not good at all, oh my gosh, join us and be surrounded by other couples in the same situations fighting for their marriages.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how powerful it is to do together, and not only together, but with other couples and other people fighting for the same thing. It literally does feel, like a marriagehood, like we said. And I think there's a lot of power in it, and we're just getting started.
Yeah. Well, and one more thing too, I think about even when Jesse would come home from his events or I'd come home from mine. And I think we all know what that feels like, that fire burning in you when you're leaving or when you're writing stuff down. Imagine having that fire with your husband or with your wife. Like it is on fire. We even said the last night, we want another day of this.
Right.
And they're still beaming and smiling. And we had one guy, literally nicknamed Happy from our group, because in the beginning, he literally said he just wants to be happy. And so his nickname at the end literally was Happy. And
he was happy and smiling.
He was. Yep.
So thank you guys for being on here today and listening. If you are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in our Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook, where I'll be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. If you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle, maybe you want to be part of our next marriage boot camp program, which is coming up in September. I will post up the link and how to sign up, at least for an interview. And also the dates are September 22nd and 23rd here in Dana Point, California. We would love to have you. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, reach out to me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great week.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse